Everyone thought they already knew who these two men were. One was Hollywood's perfect hero, the other looked like he was born to play the villain. But what almost no one ever knew is that James Garner and Jack Elam became one of the most unlikely friendships in Hollywood history. James Garner was celebrated as television and film's effortlessly charming leading man, the polished face audiences instantly trusted. From Maverick to the Rockford Files, he carried calm confidence and quiet heroism into every role he touched. Jack Elam, by sharp contrast, seemed ripped straight out of a brutal Western legend. With that famous squint, a jagged laugh, and a face shaped by dust and sun, he looked dangerous before he ever said a word. On screen, the two men appeared to live in completely different worlds. Behind the cameras, however, the truth surprised almost everyone. Very few people realized that James Garner and Jack Elam quietly formed one of Hollywood's most unexpected friendships. When they first crossed paths on a Western set in the late 1950s, Garner didn't know what to expect. Elam already carried a reputation as a hardened outlaw actor, while Garner was still learning how to handle sudden fame. He half expected Elam to be distant, guarded, even intimidating. So Garner prepared himself for an awkward first meeting. Then Elam opened his mouth, and everything changed. He delivered a joke so strange, so perfectly timed, that Garner broke into uncontrollable laughter. In a single moment, every assumption vanished. That one laugh became the turning point that quietly reshaped their relationship forever. What followed wasn't built on celebrity, competition, or ego, but on shared humor and genuine respect. As the years passed, they kept finding each other again, on Western sets, at industry gatherings, and inside the tight circle of old Hollywood cowboys who truly understood the business. But behind the smiles and easy laughter, there was a deeper story most people never heard. A story of loyalty, of personal struggle, and of surviving the darker edges of the film industry together. Much later in life, James Garner finally chose to speak openly about Jack Elam, not as the crooked-grinned outlaw Hollywood loved to cast, but as the real man behind the image. And it all traced back to one quiet moment in the late 1950s, on a dusty Western set, when an unexpected joke sparked a friendship no one saw coming. What if the most terrifying villain on set was actually the kindest man in the room? Behind the scenes, the set felt like a pressure cooker, endless hours, brutal weather, and egos that were even harder to survive than the conditions themselves. At that point in his career, James Garner was still fighting to prove he belonged, while Jack Elam had already built a reputation for stealing scenes as a wild-eyed villain with nothing more than a single stare. But off-camera, the real Jack Elam was nothing like the men he played. Quietly, and to everyone's surprise, he was kind, sharp-witted, and unexpectedly gentle at heart. Garner noticed it almost immediately. Jack was never the type to brag or perform for attention. He simply showed up, did the work, and somehow made the entire set feel lighter. While most actors spent their lunch breaks keeping to themselves, Elam sat with the crew instead. He told wild, honest stories about growing up poor, about losing an eye in a childhood accident, and about working as an accountant long before Hollywood ever learned his name. That was the moment Garner found himself truly drawn in. For the first time, he realized Jack Elam wasn't just another unforgettable character actor. He was a survivor, someone who had lived through hardship and humiliation and still chose to smile. And for Garner, that kind of resilience hit close to home, especially after his own painful climb towards recognition. Their first project together didn't create an instant friendship, but it quietly built something far rarer in Hollywood: trust. To the public, Jack Elam would always be remembered as the strange-eyed villain. Almost no one knew the life behind that unforgettable face. Long before acting, he worked as a bookkeeper, far away from cameras, casting calls, and red carpets. Nothing in his career was handed to him. He fought his way into the industry, and the truth behind his damaged eye wasn't a movie myth. It came from a real and painful moment. A pencil accident during a fight at a Boy Scout meeting that permanently injured his left eye. Instead of hiding it, Jack turned that wound into his signature. So when Hollywood needed a truly believable bad guy, Elam didn't pretend. He became it. Years later, Garner reflected on that strength and said, "Jack made peace with his past in a way I never could. He didn't run from it. He wore it proudly." What impressed him most wasn't Jack's reputation. It was his quiet honesty, because behind the laughter and easy stories, Jack carried his own private pain. He had seen the business at its coldest, typecast, underpaid, and repeatedly overlooked. And in the end, Garner understood that struggle better than almost anyone, because it was a world he knew all too well. Behind the glitz and the flashing cameras, actors would joke that Hollywood could make a man a star overnight, and then erase him just as fast when the spotlight moved on. But in the middle of that illusion-filled world, James Garner and Jack Elam found something rare:
a friendship that didn't need any masks. Years later, Garner summed it up simply. Jack Elam was the most real man I ever met in a business full of people pretending to be real. On set, almost everyone was baffled by them at first. They seemed like total opposites. Garner was smooth, sharp-tongued, and unshakably calm. Elam, rough, awkward, and untamed, a man who looked like the desert had carved him personally. But when they were together, magic happened. Between takes, you'd often find them side by side, joking about stubborn directors, endless retakes, and the way producers treated actors like disposable furniture. With a slow, crooked smile, Elam would light a cigar, glance at Garner, and say, "Jimmy, you're far too handsome for a dirty business like this." Garner would shoot back with a grin, "And you're far too ugly to be this kind." People loved their banter, but the truth ran deeper than humor. Garner admitted that Elam was one of the few in Hollywood who never tried to impress anyone, not even the studio bosses. If a script was bad, he'd tell a producer straight to their face, no sugarcoating, and yet everyone respected him for it. In a town built on image and performance, they became the unlikely duo proving that character mattered more than appearance. By the 1960s, both men had carved their place in American westerns. Across dusty trails and crowded saloons, Garner's charm and Elam's unpredictable spark brought frontier stories to life. Even off-screen, their chemistry was undeniable. Beyond cameras and scripts, there was a quiet brotherhood among Western actors. They looked out for each other, the stuntmen, the background cowboys, the forgotten players who built the world of the frontier. And more often than not, it was Elam who bought the first round, and never left until every struggling extra had someone beside them.
James Garner often said that the Western family wasn't about fame, it was about respect. Jack Elam was exactly that kind of man. Garner revealed that Jack treated the janitor with the same care and attention he gave the star. That simple fairness, that unwavering decency, is why everyone in Hollywood trusted him. As television westerns began to fade, both men could see the writing on the wall. Yet instead of bitterness, there was gratitude. "We had our time," Elam once told Garner, smiling in that rugged way of his, and it was a damn good one. But Hollywood wasn't always kind. By the 1970s, the industry was shifting. Action movies, thrillers, modern dramas, suddenly many of the classic Western stars were left behind. Garner managed to reinvent himself with the Rockford Files, proving his adaptability. Jack? He was still brilliant, still hilarious, still magnetic, but the phone didn't ring as often. The offers slowed. The world moved on, but he didn't. Garner noticed, and he acted. He would invite Jack onto small projects, TV specials, anything just to give him work. He never asked for help, Garner said later, so I just made sure he didn't have to. These years tested their friendship more than anything. Hollywood could make men selfish, but Garner's loyalty never wavered. "He was part of my story," Garner reflected years later, "and I wasn't about to let Hollywood forget him." Everyone remembered Elam's laugh, that rough, unforgettable sound that could fill a room, disarm a scene, or steal it entirely. But Garner knew the truth behind it: loneliness. Jack never played the Hollywood game. He didn't care about premieres or gossip columns. He lived quietly. He loved his family. He preferred fishing trips to parties. Garner admired that about him. Jack didn't act for attention. He acted because he loved stories. When reporters later asked Garner what made Elam special, he didn't talk about fame or talent. He said Jack's laugh came from pain, but that same laugh had a way of healing everyone around him. Years later, Garner and Elam reunited for a small TV project. The crew was mostly young, fast-paced, obsessed with style over substance. But the moment Elam walked on set, everything felt right. Old rhythms returned naturally. They teased each other, they shared stories, they brought a touch of classic Hollywood charm to a modern production that desperately needed it. It was like coming home. That reunion reminded everyone, Garner included, what truly mattered: loyalty, laughter, and love for the craft. Garner once said he learned more from Jack Elam than from any director he had ever worked with. Jack taught him something essential. Success doesn't mean changing who you are. It means surviving without losing yourself. And Jack Elam's life was a living testament to that truth every single day. He didn't have walls adorned with trophies or shelves overflowing with awards, but the reverence he commanded among Hollywood legends and newcomers alike was undeniable. John Wayne, a man whose presence could dominate any set, respected him. Young actors, stepping onto the dusty stages of westerns for the first time, looked to him with quiet awe. And James Garner, perhaps more than anyone, recognized a rare kind of wisdom in Elam, a wisdom money couldn't buy, a knowledge of human honesty that even Hollywood's glitz couldn't touch. "Jack made me laugh," Garner admitted, in a voice tinged with nostalgia, But even more than that, he made me honest. That simple statement carried the weight of decades spent side by side, of laughter shared over long days under the sun, and nights on quiet sets where stories and jokes were traded like gold. As the golden age of westerns slowly faded into memory, so too did many of the men who had carved out its legacy. Elam's passing in 2003 struck Garner harder than he ever imagined. He wasn't just another actor, he whispered quietly, almost to himself. He was family. At the memorial, Garner chose silence over words, opting to let memory carry him. Memory of wild laughter, of moments when the set felt more like home than a studio. But deep down, he knew something had shifted irreversibly. The Hollywood he had known, the one brimming with grit, camaraderie, and authentic humor, had quietly slipped away. The glittering facades remained, but the genuine human connections, the kind that sustained actors through lawsuits, grueling shoots, and personal struggles, were gone. Years later, in an intimate interview, Garner finally opened up about the man behind the crooked eye and the screen villains. He smiled before speaking. The corners of his mouth tugged with the memory of mischief and warmth. "Let me tell you something," he began, voice steady but soft. "Jack Elam wasn't a villain. He was one of the kindest souls I've ever met." He spoke at length about Elam's courage, not the bravado of action scenes, but the quiet, enduring courage of a man who refused to let the world define him by appearances. That crooked eye, which had made him a screen icon of menace, saw deeper than most. It observed truth, loyalty, and character with unerring clarity. The interview went viral almost immediately, revealing what Garner had held close for decades. Fans finally glimpsed the side of Elam that was rarely captured on film. The man who had been a guide through dark stretches of Garner's life, through lawsuits that threatened to consume him, through exhaustion and health scares that no one else could fully understand. Garner confessed later, voice tinged with emotion. "Jack was the only one who called every week to check on me. No press, no cameras, just a friend." That, he explained, was the essence of truth. Jack's kindness wasn't performative. It didn't need applause. It was quiet, steady, and profoundly real. Even now, audiences watching old westerns laugh at Elam's wild expressions and crooked grin, but Garner wanted them to see more. "Look closer," he urged, "and you'll see a man who turned pain into laughter. That's real acting." In his memoir, he finally allowed himself to be completely candid, writing without hesitation. "Jack Elam was my favorite kind of actor. Unpolished, unpredictable, unforgettable. He didn't just occupy the set. He elevated it. His mere presence reminded everyone what it meant to show up, to bring truth and honesty to every line, every glance, every interaction." Garner reflected, "If I ever played a hero well, it's because I worked alongside men like Jack, men who were heroes in real life." And the truth he wanted to share, it wasn't scandalous, it wasn't shocking, it was pure and simple. Jack Elam, the man Hollywood cast as villains, was among the kindest, loyal, and funniest souls James Garner had ever known. He proved that real goodness often hides behind the roughest faces, that true courage isn't always loud or flashy. Garner summed it up perfectly. "Jack Elam taught me that you don't need perfect eyes to see the truth. You just need a good heart. A heart that laughs, that cares, and that refuses to bow to pretense. A heart that, in the end, leaves a mark far deeper than any award ever could."